Welcome to the Clean Classrooms for Carolina Kids video on follow-up water sampling. My name is Crystal Lee Powell Jackson, and I'll be walking you through how to collect your follow-up samples and provide tips for success. Follow-up water sampling is different from initial sampling. Follow-up sampling is a two-step process. To get started, we will overview the follow-up sampling process. First, you will need to flush the faucets that have been restricted for use for drinking and cooking. Flushing is the process of clearing out sitting water from pipes by running water through the faucet. Flushing should occur for 2 to 3 minutes. Next, prepare to sample by reading through the information in your kit, including the instructions and stop page. The stop page has a stop sign with important information to read before getting started. You're then ready to collect 2 samples for each tap that tested at or above 150 parts per billion. You will start with the first straw sample, and then collect a 30-second flush sample. Then you will fill out the chain of custody document completely, being sure to note the date and time of collection for each sample. Collect the first draw and 30-second flush sample for any remaining taps that tested at or above 150 parts per billion. And be sure to document the date and time on the chain of custody document. Then you will package samples using the same bags and box for shipping. Lastly, schedule UPS to pick up the kit on the same day as collection. Follow-up sampling instructions will be printed and included in your kit. Instructions can also be found using the link or QR code on this slide.
If initial samples were found to be at or above 150 parts per billion, ppb, we will send you a follow-up sampling kit so that you can further investigate the source of lead. This will be a 2-step sampling kit, so each tap that is at or above 150 parts per billion will have 2 sample bottles. So once you receive your kit, you'll bring it inside and we'll check to make sure that all of the sampling supplies are inside. We've got our sampling bottles, and inside there'll be a Ziploc bag with handy instructions. So the first thing is a stop page telling us to stop and read first. Read your instructions carefully before proceeding. Collect samples first thing in the morning to get that first draw sample, and make sure no one uses the water in your building before you collect those samples, and then call UPS the same day to make sure that the samples get back to us in time for analysis. You'll also have your sampling instructions. You'll also find your chain of custody document, which has information about time and date of collection, as well as which sample bottle corresponds with what location in your building. Again, you want to make sure that you're holding on to that box and the bubble wrap because you'll use it when you return your sample kits back to us. So since receiving your initial results, because they were at or above the state action level, you will have had to restrict use, instructing students and staff not to use the water for cooking and drinking. We're going to flush your facility 2 to 3 days before sampling. And so if you go on your sampling instructions, you'll find a link as well as a QR code to access that closed facility flush instructions, and you will only need to flush those taps that have had restricted use. Now that you've flushed your facility, we're good to get ready to sample.
If you need to collect more than 9 taps, your water sampling kit will consist of more than 1 box. We recommend that you open 1 box at a time. Reference the shipping label on your box to determine which box you are using. For example, the shipping label on this slide shows the first of 2 boxes. We recommend that you work in box order. You need to collect those follow-up samples 2 to 3 days after flushing. Set a date to collect follow-up samples and be sure to notify other staff and students of the date. No one should use water at least 8 hours prior to your sampling date and time. If water is accidentally used, you need to reschedule the date of your sample collection. The next step is to collect the first straw sample. The 2 types of samples, the first straw and 30-second flush, help to determine what plumbing fixtures may be contributing lead to the drinking and cooking water. A first straw sample is a sample that is collected after water has been sitting for at least 8 hours. This sample is important because it represents water that may be consumed at the beginning of the day or after infrequent tap use. With many facilities closed on the weekends, we often recommend collecting water samples on a Monday morning before any water is used in the building.
So we're going to begin in the morning and we're going to find the sample bottle that has first straw. And we're going to make sure that the sample bottle matches up with the lab ID on the chain of custody document. So I've got there, and I'm referencing the number and they match. So I know that I'm going to be collecting at this sink right here. So I'm going to start with the first number, and I've got my first bottle and it's a first straw sample. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the lid. And I'm going to place it facing up, and I'm going to make sure that I don't touch the inside of the lid or the inside of the bottle. And I'm going to position the bottle underneath the water, and then I'm going to turn it on at normal speed. And just as it's getting to the top, I'm going to make sure that I slow down and collect that sample. Then I'll close it properly, tighten it, and I'm making sure that I'm not touching the inside of the bottle, and I'm giving a nice tug on it to close it. Okay, so now we're ready to collect our 30-second flush. And so what I'll need to do is set an alarm on my phone or watch for 30 seconds. And then I'm also going to get my next bottle. So I'm making sure that it matches the chain of custody. Okay. And so now I'm going to flush the tap for 30 seconds. Open this bottle and get ready. And so I'll start my thing and I'll start my timer. Okay, so now that that timer is finished, we'll stop it. And now my bottle's ready, and I'll collect as before. Again, stopping the water just before it reaches the top of the bottle, and you're gonna close it snugly. Now I'm gonna fill out the chain of custody document with the date and time of collection. And now I'm gonna move on to the next sample location. Okay, so now we're at our water fountain and we're gonna collect our our first straw and 30-second flush samples there. A tip for water fountains is to 72 hours before you collect your samples, you go ahead and test out where the water will hit when you press the button so you know where to position that water bottle. So I'm going to turn it on and look to see where it hits, and then I'm just going to put a marker there. Now that we've collected our samples, we're ready to get them back in the box and ready to ship back to the lab. So what I'm going to do is give all of my samples a good tug, make sure that they are closed. I'm going to now complete my chain of custody document, and here I'll add any comments if there were any comments that I want to make about my sampling, if I had any issues like overflow or spilling. And then I'm going to check to see, okay, was my facility operating normally? It was. It was not closed, and I did perform the recommended flushing for those taps that had restrict use. I'm going to print my name, put the date and time of sample collection. And now I'm ready to put everything back in the bag and send them off to the lab. So the chain of custody document is going to go inside of that smaller Ziploc bag that it came in. And this is to make sure that it doesn't get wet in the event that there's spillage from the water bottles. And I can go ahead and stick this back inside the box. The next thing are my samples. So Again, that large Ziploc bag that they came in. I'm going to give them another tug just to make sure that they are closed. Then I'm going to try and get out as much air as possible. And close that bag up. And then I'm going to stick them inside of the box that they came in. If I lost my box, I could just stick this into any box that will fit. And I'm going to use good shipping tape to close the box back up. And then I'm going to take the return shipping label that came with the box and I'm going to put that right over the next one. And now I'm ready to call UPS.
Lastly, we'll review some reminders and tips for success. Be sure to open one box at a time to make sure you keep track of each sample bottle according to the chain of custody document. Save the box and bubble wrap to use for shipping back your samples. Also be sure to ship samples back within 10 days. Samples received 10 days after collection cannot be analyzed and you'll be required to resample. Some common mistakes to avoid. Your facility should use water normally the week before sampling. However, make sure no one uses the water for at least 8 hours before collecting follow-up samples. Continue to not use restricted taps for drinking and cooking. Do not remove faucet aerators or other fixtures, and do not close faucet shutoff valves. Thank you for helping us identify and eliminate lead and asbestos hazards where North Carolina children learn and play. If you have any questions, please contact our team using the QR code or website link on this slide. You can also call or text us at 1-855-997-2864 or visit our frequently asked questions page. The Clean Classrooms for Carolina Kids team is here to help you throughout the entire program.